The hall was a cathedral of alien architecture, stretching higher than the clouds of any human city. Pillars of translucent crystal reflected the soft amber glow of suspended lights, casting long, flickering shadows across the polished floor. Music drifted through the air, haunting, ethereal, not quite recognizable to human ears, but mesmerizing nonetheless. This was the royal court of Althera, a planet famous for its unmatched beauty, advanced technology, and most importantly, for the young alien princess who ruled the hearts of every interstellar suitor. I had been brought here as part of the Earth delegation, a quiet observer. Humans rarely attended these galactic courts, and even rarer for one to be considered at all. I had hoped only to witness the spectacle, the parade of admirers, the display of power, the ceremonious pledges of allegiance, but certainly not to participate. The room hummed with tension as the princess entered. Her presence was magnetic, almost painfully radiant. She moved with a grace that defied gravity, and every head turned in unison. Gold and silver embroidery on her robes shimmered like liquid metal, and her eyes, large, violet, impossibly deep, swept over the assembly. A hush fell. Even the most confident nobles straightened, their eagerness faltering under her gaze. She paused mid-step and surveyed the room. One by one, the potential suitors had presented themselves. The Prince of Carillon, whose ships commanded entire star systems, the Duke of Salthera, famed for subduing the asteroid warlords, the Baron of Ryloth, whose reputation for wealth was unmatched across 10 sectors. Each bowed, offered words of loyalty, promises of riches, displays of military might, but the princess remained impassive. Their brilliance seemed to dim under her scrutiny. And then, finally, her gaze rested on me. I was not moving, not bowing, not presenting anything but myself. My uniform was plain, my rank modest, and my voice had barely carried over the murmur of the room. I had hoped to remain inconspicuous, a quiet observer among a crowd of ambitious beings. Yet she saw me. For a moment, the room seemed to shrink. Every noble stiffened, a collective breath held. The princess's eyes narrowed slightly, and then, without warning, she raised her hand and pointed directly at me. The sound that escaped the hall wasn't audible, but the effect was instant. The other suitors faltered, confusion and indignation flashing across their faces. The boldest of them, the Prince of Carillon, opened his mouth to speak, but found his voice choked by disbelief. The Duke of Salthera looked as if he might storm forward in protest, but even his imposing presence could not compete with her quiet certainty. All the suitors were turned away. I was left standing there, stunned, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes on me. The princess's expression softened slightly, almost imperceptibly, but there was an unmistakable glimmer of curiosity, perhaps even amusement, in her violet gaze. "Come forward," she said, her voice musical, yet commanding. I blinked, then moved. My boots made no sound against the polished floor, but every step felt like a journey across 1,000 stars. The distance between us was insignificant compared to the space I felt between our worlds. "Quiet human," she addressed me by my title, or perhaps the closest approximation she could manage. "Why do you stand there and not speak? Do you lack words, or do you choose them carefully?" I choose them carefully," I admitted, my voice sounding small in the grand hall. I expected laughter, ridicule, or even dismissal. None came. Instead, she tilted her head, studying me as if peeling away the layers of my mind, weighing intentions invisible to anyone else. "You are not like the others," she murmured. The words were barely audible, yet they carried the power to silence even the faintest whisper in the hall. "You do not boast, you do not threaten, you do not seek to impress. And yet there is something about you. I had no answer. None of my training, none of my experience in diplomacy or combat prepared me for this moment. I could only meet her gaze and wait. The princess walked closer, her movements slow, deliberate, mesmerizing. The room's occupants shifted uneasily. They had come with expectations, strategies, and pride, all of which seemed to crumble under the weight of her attention directed at me. "You see the others?" she said, gesturing subtly toward the door where the rejected suitors had been politely ushered out. "They are brilliant, powerful, and skilled. And yet, none of them speaks to me as you do." I don't know what to say, I admit it. I didn't come to impress you. She held up a hand, stopping me mid-sentence.
Exactly.
That is what speaks volumes. You are honest in a way none of the others can be. That is rare. I felt my pulse quicken. This was not a test of skill or courage. This was an examination of truth. And in that moment, I realized that I had never felt so exposed, and yet so safe. She circled me once, her gaze taking in every detail, my stance, the careful way I held my hands, the subtle tension in my shoulders. Most humans are loud, eager, ambitious beyond reason. They compete, they conspire, they promise everything for a fleeting glance of approval. But you're different. Tell me, human, why are you here? I wanted to see, I said honestly, to witness this world, your people, your culture, and perhaps to understand it. She paused, the corner of her lips twitching upward in what could almost be a smile. To understand that is more than most offer. Most come with demands, with expectations, with plans to bend everything to their will. Her eyes softened, the violet intensity dimming just enough to show something warmer, gentler. I like that about you, that you are here, without pretense. I swallowed, feeling words rise like bubbles in water, impossible to hold. I did not expect to be chosen. I didn't even expect to speak to you. And yet, here you are, she said, tilting her head. Here you stand. Perhaps it is fate. Perhaps it is choice. But I am drawn to you, human. Not because of your power or your rank or even your accomplishments, but because of who you are, quietly, steadfastly, without fanfare. The court had gone silent. Not a single whisper, not a single shuffle of movement. Even the attendants seemed frozen in place, suspended in awe of the connection forming before them. I started, but my voice faltered again. What could I possibly say? Words felt meaningless here, in the presence of someone who saw me so clearly. Do not speak, she whispered. Sometimes, words are unnecessary. Sometimes, presence, honesty, and courage say more than any declaration could. I nodded, unsure if I was even breathing. The world outside seemed distant, almost irrelevant. Only the princess mattered, only the weight of her gaze, only the unspoken understanding building between us. She reached out a delicate hand, and I felt the heat of her touch on my shoulder, an electric current that made my chest tighten. You are unlike anyone I have met. Perhaps unlike anyone I will ever meet again. That is why I have chosen you. Chosen me? The word was barely a whisper, yet it carried the weight of entire galaxies.
Yes.
Chosen, she confirmed, her eyes locking onto mine with a brilliance that made everything else fade. All the suitors, all the nobles, all those who sought to impress me, they are gone. And yet you remain, because you do not seek to impress. Because you do not seek me for power. You simply are. A trembling excitement surged through me. This was not merely selection, not merely approval, it was acceptance. Complete, unreserved, undeniable. The hall exhaled collectively as if the tension had been lifted. Servants, guards, and courtiers alike felt it. There would be no complaints, no objections, no attempts to undermine her choice. Even those with the greatest pride bowed their heads, acknowledging her will. "You'll stand by my side," she said softly, "not because you are expected to, not because you are commanded, but because you choose to. That is what matters most." I will," I replied, my voice steadier now. "I will stand by you, whatever comes." She inclined her head, a gesture of respect and approval, the first hint of warmth lighting her features fully. "Then let us see where this path leads us, quiet human. Together." For the first time in weeks, no, in years, I felt entirely at home. Not in a place, not in a rank, not in a title, but in the presence of someone who saw me, truly saw me. The alien princess had pointed at me. She had chosen me. And everything else, the grandeur, the expectation, the history of empires and conquests, fell away. We walked from the hall together, side by side. My voice was silent, but the connection spoke volumes. The quiet human had been seen, acknowledged, and chosen, and in that choice lay a promise that even the stars might envy. The suitors outside the hall whispered among themselves, but their words carried no weight. None could compete with the quiet truth between us. She had chosen me, and all else was insignificant. And in that moment, I understood something profound. It was not skill, rank, or strength that mattered most in the eyes of a queen. It was authenticity, honesty, and the courage to simply be. We stepped into the garden, where alien flora glowed in colors unseen by human eyes. She stopped and looked at me, her gaze soft, her hand still resting lightly on my arm. "You are the one I have waited for," she said. "Not the loudest, not the boldest, but the one who simply is. And that is enough." I nodded, overwhelmed, humbled, and strangely elated. "Then I will be enough," I said. "For you, for this moment, for whatever comes next." She smiled, finally, a smile that eclipsed the grandeur of the court and the brilliance of the galaxy beyond. And as we stood there, the quiet human and the alien princess, the world seemed to hold its breath, honoring the choice she had made and the future we would face together. Ending. All the suitors had been turned away, their ambition eclipsed by authenticity. The princess had chosen the quiet human, not for power or wealth, but for honesty and courage. In that choice, both found a bond that transcended words, culture, and worlds, a connection that promised a future defined by trust, understanding, and unwavering companionship.